Good evening. The Municipality of Anchorage Platting Board Authority will now come to order. Today is December 4th, 2019. It is 6:30. May we have roll call?
Clayton Walker.
Present.
Kevin Cross.
Present.
Mark Seward.
Present.
Valerie Reeds.
Present.
Jana Weltzine.
Present.
Becky Lipson.
Present.
Don Porter is excused. Thank you.
And we have a quorum. First item of business is the action summary from Wednesday, November 6, 2019. Kevin Cross moves to approve the action summary, and Valerie Rich seconds. Is there any opposition to approving the summary of action? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Next, we'll turn to the minutes from November 6th. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? Kevin Cross has moved and Valerie Rich has seconded. Is there any items that need to be amended or changed or additions made? Seeing no interest in that, is there any opposition to approving the minutes as drafted? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. We'll now turn to disclosures, special order of business. Are there any disclosures this evening? Seeing no board members that have disclosures, we'll now move on to informational items. We have a abbreviated plat for October 28th and November 25th, 2019. And the minutes will reflect those two items are present. We will now turn to the public hearing portion of the meeting. The Platting Board meets each month on the first and third Wednesday except holidays as regular meetings. If the Platting Board fails to complete the agenda for a regular meeting, the Board will carry over the remainder of the agenda to the following meeting. The procedure by which the public is allowed to speak at the Board meeting is, after staff's presentation is completed, I will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons wishing to testify will follow the time limits established by the Commission's Rule of Procedure. Petitioners will go first, and they have 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, and PTAs will have 5 minutes, and individuals are given 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, the Board may ask questions of you. You may only testify once on an issue unless the Board questions you further. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Board takes. An appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 2111-304. The decision of the Board at this scheduled public hearing becomes final 7 calendar days after the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based on the record made at this hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Platting Board becomes the final appealable decision, and within 20 days of the final appealable decision, an interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances under AMC 2111-503 or an appeal of the Board's final appealable decision under 21 AMC 30. With that, the Board will now take up Case S12420, Spruce Terraces Subdivision, lots 1 through 27. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a request to subdivide 2 lots into 27 lots with a phasing plan that consists of 3 phases of development. The request includes variances from AMC 21.08.030F.6a, which is cul-de-sacs, to exceed the maximum 900-foot in length for a cul-de-sac, measuring approximately 1,250 feet, and from AMC 21.08.030K2 lot dimensions to allow proposed lot 21 to exceed the lot width to depth ratio. The petition site is located west of Mountaineer Drive, east of Farview Place, north of Sandpaper Drive, and south of East 155th Avenue in the Rabbit Creek Community Council area. The subdivision request is being made to prepare the property for construction of 11 single-family homes in the first phase of the three-phase development, with phases 2 and 3 consisting of 8 single-family homes. The final subdivision total will be 27 lots when completely built out. The property is zoned R10 SL, that's Alpine Slope District with special limitations. The proposed lots meet the minimum lot size and width requirements of Table 2104-2, as well as the underlying special limitations imposed on the property, which require a minimum lot size of 1.25 acres. Roads and dedication. The official streets and highways plan lists East 156th Avenue as a 1B collector road with a minimum right-of-way width of 70 feet. Staff is requesting a condition to dedicate the northern 35 feet of proposed Lot 1 as right-of-way. For Farview Place, staff is requesting a condition to dedicate the eastern 30 feet right-of-way internal to the subdivision. That matches the existing dedication on the other half. Spruce Terrace Circle, staff was also recommending for the petitioner to construct Spruce's Terraces Circle, where it is internal to the proposed subdivision to municipal standards as a 20-foot wide strip paved street with a 41-foot radius cul-de-sac bulb at the southern terminus. Alaska Terraces Lane, staff is recommending to construct it to municipal standards as a 20-foot wide strip paved street as well. Staff is requesting as a condition of approval that the applicant show the radius for all intersections on the plat and enter into a subdivision agreement with private development for the required improvements. In the matter of trails, the non-motorized transportation coordinator made comments, and taking into consideration those comments, staff believes that the most reasonable solution to addressing trails is to require the petitioner to dedicate a 20-foot wide trail easement as shown along the eastern boundary of the subdivision, as well as the 20-foot trail easement that connects from Spruce Terraces Circle between lots 16 and 17 out to the eastern boundary. Planning has placed a condition to construct a minimum 8-foot wide soft surface trail and provide non-motorized signage at the terminuses. In conformance with the adopted plans, this preliminary plat appears to generally conform with the petition site's classification, as well as the following policies of the 2040 Anchorage Land Use Plan. Policy 4.1 provides sufficient land to meet the diverse housing needs of Anchorage's citizens. Policy 5.1 implement recommended land use patterns and growth in context with existing infrastructure capacity and planned improvements for utilities, streets, and trails. The rural development of the subdivision is keeping with the context of the surrounding neighborhood. Planned future improvements for streets and utilities will allow the subdivision to be developed in phases while balancing the community's needs and addressing traffic circulation and safety issues. In the matter of the variance requests, variance 1, which is a variance from the cul-de-sac length, the petitioner is requesting this variance to allow the Spruce Terraces to exceed the maximum 900 feet in length to 1,250 feet. In the matter of the second variance, the petitioner is requesting the width of a variance from lot width dimensions. So the width of a lot shall be at least 1/3 the depth, and the proposed lot 21 in the subdivision has a width of 140 feet and a depth of 471 feet, which exceeds the maximum depth of 444 feet to meet the standard. I'll split these out as variance 1 first for the cul-de-sacs. Staff finds that condition A has been met. There are special circumstances or conditions. There's no right-of-way connection available to the east of the property through Shangri-La Estates East. To connect proposed Spruce Terrace Circle to Lost Horizons Drive, the grade would exceed 20%. This exceeds the maximum grade allowed in the design criteria manual of 10%. This situation requires the proposed Spruce Heights subdivision to take its primary access from Farview Place and connect it to the right-of-way along East 155th, 156th Avenue to the north. In the standard B, staff has found that has been met. The variance would not adversely affect public welfare or negatively affect properties in the vicinity. The cul-de-sac seeking the variance will not be constructed until secondary access is funded and approved for construction. Staff believes that granting the variance will provide a road to be built for the subdivision that both adequately serves the neighborhood and accommodates emergency response vehicles. Standard C, the intent of this section is to discourage for safety reasons cul-de-sacs that are excess in length to order to facilitate safe and effective access to the lots. This design appears to be a reasonable alternative due to topographical features and right-of-way constraints associated with the property. In the matters of D, Standard D has been met. Undue hardship will result from strict compliance with the subdivision regulations. The natural topography is too steep to the southeast end of the subdivision to connect to that Lost Horizons Drive, and there is no right-of-way connection to the east of the property. In the matter of variance 2, that's the lot dimension, lot width to depth. Staff has found that condition A has been met. The subject property slope is minimal, and the entire lot area is buildable. The variance from the width to depth ratio is de minimis, as lot 21 is the only lot on the curve with the road design that does not meet the 3-to-1 ratio. Standard B, the granting of the variance would allow lot 21 to have slightly less than the required 3-to-1 depth to width ratio. It does not appear that there's any negative impact or other properties on the area because the lot size is 1.54 acres. Standard C has been met. The granting of the variance will allow one lot within a 27-lot subdivision to exceed the lot width to depth ratio, and the variance will not have the effect of nullifying the intent of the subdivision regulations. In Standard D, for lot dimension, given the de minimis nature of the lot depth to width ratio variance, strict compliance would also result in undue hardship because a road alignment would be required to bring the road further out to the northeast. This could create more ground disturbance of the hillside and potentially increase the likelihood of subsurface water disturbance. In the matter of variance 1, the cul-de-sac length recommendation, the R10 district is intended for use in areas where natural physical features such as slopes, soils, and stability require unique and creative design for development. Topographic constraints and other physical features have been taken into consideration during the site design. The phase subdivision plan requires the variance to cul-de-sac length be approved during the preliminary plat process. So staff is recommending approval of the plat with phase 1 only being developed until secondary access is approved for construction. Once the secondary access connection is achieved, the remaining phase of the development will take place, and that'll construct the cul-de-sac. Therefore, staff finds the variance standards have all been substantially met and recommends approval of the variance conditions at the end of the staff report. In the matter of variance 2, which is the lot width to depth ratio, granting the variance will not impact building setback requirements, fire, or safety, and staff recommends approval of this variance. The traffic department has concerns with the proposed subdivision, specifically the lack of secondary access. Secondary access is critical from both a life and safety viewpoint for emergency services and the reduction in daily traffic on the existing rights-of-way. Development of the additional primary road system is supported and recommended in Chapter 4 of the Hillside District Plan, approved in April 2010. There has been potential funding for Mountain Air Drive extension added to the most recent AMATS Transportation Improvement Program. The AMATS TIP shows funding for design in 2020, right-of-way acquisition in 2022, and potential construction projected after 2024. This proposed subdivision will add 27 lots served by a single ingress and egress of Sandpiper Drive. Planning has similar concerns with secondary access and the need for future construction of Mountain Air Drive, which will provide an important transportation link for the Anchorage hillside. However, with recent attention brought to the transportation on the hillside and the TIP showing funding for both design and right-of-way acquisition, planning is confident that secondary access will be provided in the near future. Thus, the Planning Department recommends approval of the phase plat creating 27 lots with variances from AMC 2108-030 F6A and AMC 2108-030 K2. Staff is recommending conditions allowing only the 11 lots proposed within Phase 1 to be developed prior to a secondary access serving the subdivision being funded and approved construction. Therefore, staff's making on page 16 approval of the request for the variance A and B. C, on page 17, approval of the phase plan. And on page 17D, it actually is 17 through 20, approval of the plat for 60 months. However, planning staff we have passed out a there's some things in bold that was passed out. It's got kind of a purple line at the top. And you can see condition D7, we're going to strike in bold entire, and we're going to add at the end of the condition the width of clearing and grubbing to be resolved with the non-motorized transportation coordinator. If we flip over to page 19, which is 15C, we're going to add each dwelling unit constructed within phase 1 shall be protected with an automatic sprinkler system complying with the standards, and then we're adding until a secondary access roadway serving this subdivision is funded and approved for construction. And then lastly, there's a minor editing change as 16.7, which is VII. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and the petitioner's representative is here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for staff at this time? Thank you. Seeing none, may we have the petitioner's representative?
Hello, my name is Andre Spinelli, Spinelli.
Thank you. Did you want to reserve any time for rebuttal?
How much time do I have?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Yeah, I'll probably get through this and then reserve the rest.
Okay.
Spinell Holmes entered into agreement to purchase these two 20-acre parcels in August of 2015. The purchase agreement was contingent on the ability to get a plat approved. The two parcels are currently owned by a group of individuals that invested in the first parcel back in 1983 and the second in 2000. They had worked on developing these parcels for several years, and out of the 6 original partners, 2 have now passed away, and only one of the partners has any heirs. The youngest owner is 73 years old, and I'm telling you all this because they have asked me to make it clear that originally developing this property was intended to fund their retirement, and now they're just hopeful that they live long enough to see the property sell. The current development team, which includes Spinell Homes, Triad Engineering, and the Boutte Company, have been working with the municipality and the property owners since 2015 to come up with a viable project. Today, we are close and hopeful that with a few changes to the recommendation of approval, we'll end up with a project that can move forward. There are some conditions of approval that could be very challenging for this project if not changed or removed. The first is mentioned twice, condition C1 and D15E, which prohibits development beyond phase 1 until secondary access is funded and approved for construction. The owners of the property are not happy with this requirement as it puts the land in phase 2 and 3 in limbo. This requirement is difficult for us because it is unclear what code requires it. In Fire's comments, they make reference to section D107.1, which is an appendix of the Fire Code. It specifically applies to projects with more than 30 units. Our project only has 27 lots. The development team has advised the owners that this condition may be unavoidable, but the owners would like us to request that phasing be tied to something other than a controversial road that was previously funded only to have state funds redirected because of disagreements between the area landowners and the municipality on the location of the future road. An example would be tying the phasing to the dates referenced for Mountain Air Drive, which was 2020, 2022, and 2024. Condition D6 requests changing to 5 foot. This is regarding the trail and just specifying that the trail be 5 foot per DCM minimum for unpaved trails. I think we're happy with staff's recommended changes to condition D7. Condition D8, we request removal. Road design and drainage report will address these issues. Condition D9A, constructing 156th Avenue at this time does not make sense, and it will not be used. It does not connect to any existing roads. Plus, it is very difficult to design and build a short section of road that will work when the entire road is designed. Therefore, were this road to be built now and a future connection made, this section would likely need to be rebuilt to match the future design. I estimate this section of road to add up approximately $150,000 to the cost of the project with no public benefit. The road could prove to be an unneeded liability, and I've seen similar nicely tucked away dead-end roads attract illegal and inappropriate activities and require additional maintenance and expenses. Condition D15C requires that each dwelling constructed include an automatic sprinkler system. These systems can cost between $25,000 and $40,000 depending on the amount of water produced by the well. It would be generous to say that the sprinkler system could add $10,000 in value to the home. Thus, this requirement, which is not required for the 27 vacant lots in Shangri-La next door, will reduce the value of the land by $15,000 to $30,000 per lot. Condition D15D requires fire-wise construction. I estimate this cost of this at close to $10,000 for the exterior siding of the home, without adding anything to the appraised value of the home. So the requirement is somewhat of an unknown, as it comes from a code which is not actually adopted in the MOA. I'm not aware of any plats that have ever required this in the past, so there's not necessarily a precedent to follow. There are many aspects of fire-wise construction that appear to make sense, but some are concerning, especially in our climate. For example, spark-resistant soffit vents will reduce the infiltration of airborne sparks into the home, but will also limit ventilation of the attic, which is known to lead to ice dams, roof leaks, mold, and rot in our area. Adding these fire requirements to mid-hillside subdivision plat could set a dangerous precedent. They are not supported by code requirements and are arbitrary at best. If this plat is to require the owners to sprinkler their homes and use fire-resistant siding, they would be surrounded by developments to the west, south, and east that have no such requirements to do the same. As I said, there are 27 undeveloped lots in Shangri-La with some various other vacant land in the area as well. If the MOA wants to require sprinkler systems or fire-wise construction in areas that lack firewater, it is my opinion that it should be a requirement of the building code and not a plat note. I'll reserve the rest of the time.
Hang on, sir. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Andre Spinelli? Mark Seward.
Through the chair, Mr. Spinell. A quick question on this phase one, the 11 lots in that phase. Do you have a copy of that plat? Could you call them out to me?
Yeah, I have a copy somewhere. Okay.
We have that. It's in the packet. My mistake.
Oh, okay.
My colleague just showed it to me. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public that are representing community councils, PTAs present? No community councils or PTAs? Do we have any individuals that wish to speak? Please come down.
Hello, my name is David Rubski. I probably lived longer up there than anybody. I've been a 70-year Alaska resident, Anchorage, and I want to just share with you some of the things that have happened in the past that we've had problems with, and some of the good things that have happened in the past up on the hillside. I originally put in Windsong Drive, which is right below this area, and I didn't have any neighbors, any close neighbors for years, and I'm thankful for neighbors. We have wonderful neighbors now, and I'm not opposed to bringing in new people, but we know that 162nd is a major problem. It has 22 degrees slope going up for 2 blocks. We've lost lots of people down that hill. It turns to ice. The fire department says they can't get there because of the slope of that. And so that's why we have asked for years to have this back off of Mountain Air put in. And each time a big subdivision comes in, I didn't know it was Chuck's company that was putting this in, but when they come in, it sounds very good, and a lot of times it is, but there are downfalls. When they put in the gated subdivision, they diverted a creek, and they took all their drain water and put it onto Luna Drive, which sent it down Golden View, or down 162nd. It destroyed the road. It flooded the house at the bottom of the road year after year, and then it washed over the top of the road. Eventually, the city had to come in and make them change it. Then when they added Shangri-La first phase, again, there was a problem with roads, and they paved the road, and it has improved. But what we have majorly over and over again, every one of these subdivision extensions, is drainage problems. They drain the ditches, and of course it's on a hillside, and they drain it into subdivisions that do not have drainage. And so they flood homes. We have people here who their homes have been flooded year after year after year from Shangri-La subdivision. They came in and put a drainage system down in one section, and they improved it. But the city had to pick up the fees, not the builders. The city had to. Now we have the same problem coming in.
Thank you. Your time is expired, but before you go, I need to get the spelling of your last name.
It's Rubski, R-E-B-I-S-C-H-K-E.
And I think we have questions for you. Mr. Cross has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Rubski. Aside from drainage, and briefly, just because out of the interest of everybody's time, aside from drainage, any other specific concerns that you can speak briefly?
The last time we came before you, we were told, okay, the money has been appropriated for the road to go out on Mountain Air. And they said no permits will be issued for the extension of Shangri-La until that road is finished. That wasn't the truth. They told us a lie. As soon as the money was not funded, it was taken away, they immediately gave out permits. Now, they're showing that there are, I think their brochure said there was 102 places. There's 133 homes that are using it presently, and there can go up to 150 with the new people, and it's all going down Golden View, and we've had wreck after wreck after wreck. It's a good way to meet our neighbors, but we've had multiple wrecks on that road because it's 22 degrees and it turns to ice, and we know what the Chinooks do. And so that's why we're saying, don't let this happen again. And there are going to be, the way it's designed right now, it's going to come to Farview, and there is nowhere for the drainage to go. And it's going to drain into the people's lots where the road comes out. And
Drainage and traffic access.
that's it.
All right, excellent, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who wants to be next? Please come forward, sir.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
There's an exhibit.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Fred Brown, B-R-O-W-N.
Thank you.
I am the chairman of the Fireview Homeowners Association. Correct. Thank you. What I've handed out before the clock began was photos I took yesterday driving down Sandpiper. As you know from having looked at the maps, the Fireview intersection, above the Fireview intersection on Sandpiper is the location of the Shangri-La subdivision. Below there is Sandpiper, which winds down the hill and then ultimately joins with 162nd Street. Of the two photos I showed you, the first one is at that intersection of Fireview and Sandpiper looking up the hill. Originally, I took the picture simply to demonstrate that on that street regularly, I would say several times daily, there are dog walkers on the street. What that picture doesn't show very well is that up to the right, this is looking uphill up toward the top of the Shangri-La subdivision. This too is a very steep grade. It's upon reaching the top of that grade and extending even further to the east is where one would gain access to the mountain view, which then goes off to the north. So, to reiterate the points that were made earlier, really the only real access in and out of the existing area and also out of the new subdivision as proposed would be on this strip downhill following Sandpiper. The second picture that I showed you, also taken yesterday, is approaching the corner about 200 yards downhill from where that first picture was taken. And as you can see from the picture, it's a sharp corner, the road is narrow, and as winter progresses, the street will become even more narrow as snow builds up on each side. The point of the illustration is to say that this is a dangerous road to travel. Now, there's a lot of talk about secondary access being provided at some point in the future. One proposal, of course, is using mountain air, which, as I've illustrated, for anyone coming out of this subdivision will not want to go up that steep hill to go and use that secondary access. They'll go downhill using Sandpiper onto 162nd, then ultimately onto Golden View. So, in short, we at the Farmview Homeowners Association would recommend that no additional lots be built or provided or opportunity for building until secondary access is provided. And what we would like to see is Farview extended further to the north, ultimately to intersect with the right-of-way for 156th Street, and that access be provided on 156th Street up to Farview. And the final point I'll make is that in the plat as proposed, the access to 156th Street would be winding and not regularly used. Instead, we would recommend that the staff recommendation of using the right-of-way on the west side of this plot be developed and that Farview be extended in a direct line north and south to ultimately intersect with 156th Street, 56th Avenue. That concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cross? That's okay. Anyone else have questions of Mr. Fred Brown?
Thank you.
Who's next?
Good evening.
And your name?
My name is Margaret Aaron, A-R-E-N-D, and I'm a longtime resident of Sandpiper Drive, and I'd like to thank my neighbors for their comments. They are right on. My biggest concern is the development of this or any other subdivision without secondary access. The area can't really sustain additional traffic. If you were there during the changing of the guard at the Golden View Middle School and trying to get onto Rabbit Creek, it's a challenge, as well as all of the other challenges we have with that access. I really do consider this an issue for my own life and safety, as well as the municipality does. The past year has surely proven that disasters do happen. This part of town in particular struggles with the dangers of being on the urban wildland interface and how quickly fire could overtake the hillside. Fire-wise landscaping is certainly very important, but it's not the only answer. Should something happen, people will need to get out, and emergency responders will need to get in. How is that going to happen on the city's longest dead-end road? Please don't make this issue worse. Another issue, which is really not adequately addressed in the information that I was able to find, is both the topography and the drainage. I guess you're getting the issues here. The area isn't really level. It is actually quite undulating and jumbled, and this is going to complicate the already complex drainage issues. There are drainage problems right off of these developments. It looks like to me from the maps that right just to the east of the development is a pond, and there's constantly standing water on what I think is 156th as it goes towards the east. It's maybe right off of the these parcels, but there's substantial drainage issues all around there. There's flowing water across the landscape most of the year, not just in high water times. So drainage management is going to be very problematic throughout the proposed subdivision. It may not be impacting them, but it's going to impact people around them, and not just for lots 1 through 4. You're welcome.
Kevin Cross.
Again, I appreciate your statement, and out of the interest of time, again, primary concerns, secondary access, and then you said, and drainage. You said there's standing water. Is that 156 near Windsong? Is that where that would be?
No, well, it's a little hard for me to tell, and I haven't been out there with a GPS, but it would be 156th and where 156, if you took, I'm trying to read this, Lost Horizon, if you extended along that trail easement from a Lost Horizon to 156, just to the east of there is a pond. I think that's where the pond is, looking at the topo. And if you extended, if 156 just to the east of where these parcels are, there's standing water there.
Could you do me a favor, and would you just come point it out on my map?
Sure.
And show me where, because I'll inquire about wetlands and I'll inquire about drainage tests.
Oh, it's a little,
Just take my pen and just put an X right there.
yeah, right.
Okay, next to the petition site. Excellent, thank you. I appreciate that greatly.
These areas are here.
Yeah.
Are there other questions?
No, thank you.
You bet.
And who else wishes to testify this evening? Please come forward, sir.
Thank you. My name is Tron Jensen, Jensen, and my comments will second a lot of the comments that have already been said.
Was that John or
Trond, Trond, last name Jensen. I'd like to read the following letter for the record. So I live with my family up on Mountain Breeze Drive. It's been said here there's only a single access and egress to this area, namely the 162nd Street and the Sandpiper Corridor. The single source of access and egress already pose a safety issue, especially in an emergency situation, and a dense housing subdivision such as Spruce, Terraces will only make matters worse. So we strongly advise against the subdivision. The two lots should not be subdivided until Mountain Air Drive is completed across to Bear Valley Elementary and Fire Station 10 for the following reasons. First, Sandpiper and Golden View Drive, especially around Golden View Middle School, is already congested. Number two, emergency vehicle access to the Shangri-La subdivisions currently take 10 to 15 minutes. Additional traffic on Golden View and Sandpiper will make this worse. If we had the road across to Fire Station 10, that access would only take 2 to 3 minutes. Third, so emergency egress is currently limited to a single path down Sandpiper. Excuse me. With Mountain Air Drive completed, all the existing and new developments will have a secondary path of egress during an emergency like a wildfire. And fourth, 162nd is already secondary egress via Luna Street for Prominence Point. So in an emergency situation, that will be really congested going down 162nd. So additional development in this area, such as Spruce Terraces, will make emergency vehicle access slower and emergency egress more dire unless Mountain Air Drive is extended. We hope that the Planning Commission will acknowledge the safety aspects to the current residents and only approve the subdivision after Mountain Air Drive is funded and completed. And that completes my comments. Thank you.
Does the board have any questions for Tron Jensen? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Holmes. Building this subdivision in phases is logical because of the secondary access, which is vital. Shangri-La Phase 2 and Potter Highlands are platted the same way. And a bit of history as to why Shangri-La 2 was built, and that's because the condition was that they had to have Mountain Air be designed and funded, which it was, 65% designed and funded with monies that some private citizens obtained from Juneau before Senator Giesel removed those monies under false pretenses. Constructing the trail with each phase and requiring good signage is also a very positive condition. Too often we've lost pedestrian access because trail easements weren't built when the subdivision was. We are still behind the rest of the U.S. when it comes to providing walkable neighborhoods, but this is a step in the right direction, and besides, it's in code. Future plats may come before you without pathways. Please always support them. You may have heard, and you will hear sometimes, that topography is too steep for a path. While 10% grade is the goal for trails, please keep this picture in mind that allows steep and narrow access. This Eagle Scout project is a perfect example of what can be done and rarely is steepness unsurmountable. And please support the condition for in one of the comments, I believe from Ms. Pease, that the developer hire a trail designer. I'm glad that Watershed Management is asking for a 25-foot vegetative buffer in the west. However, if developers want to also adhere to a fire-wise landscaping, this could result in a real catch-22. And 25 feet will actually die back to maybe 15 feet after construction. So 30 or 40 feet is not too little to ask for. Drainage retention on site is important because drainage is a huge issue on the hillside. I don't see where there's any percent of vegetative retention that is stated, as other plats have them. Please ask why and how much will be retained. And please do see that the Rabbit Creek Community Council did submit comments, but the comment deadline was 1 day before our last meeting, and we had a really good discussion about very logical reasons why the variances should not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions for Diane Holmes? Mr. Cross.
Diane, excellent. You did a fantastic job. Signage, making sure we stick to a trail designer, drainage retention, and vegetation retention. Were those your 4 main points? Did I miss anything?
Right, and overall vegetative retention, like a certain percentage over the lot, and how are they going to deal with fire-wise? And, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're a good note taker too. Thank you.
Thank you. And who's going to be 6th?
Hello. My name is Cindy Jensen. You heard from my husband previously, but I'm here actually reading a letter from one of our neighbors who is out of the country on business. My name is Joe Marushak, and my wife and family own a home on 16610 Sandpiper Drive. We are very concerned about the traffic situation currently as we drive from Golden View Drive up 162nd Street, north on Windsong Drive, through the hairpin on Sandpiper, through another hairpin turn, and up a steep drive to our home. So we are particularly concerned about the additional traffic that would result from a new proposed development north of Sandpiper Drive. The current road is very narrow, has almost no extra room when vehicles pass one another, has blind spots, poor lighting, and has resulted in many close encounters and accidents. Our own daughter and her vehicle were pushed into the ditch this last winter, nearly wrecked, near one of the hairpins turns on this road. We do not believe an additional major development can be allowed through this road without further compromising the safety of the residents of our neighborhood. We ask that the development not be allowed until there is a road that connects the new development to new access from the north of the development. This road should be relatively straight so as to avoid blind spots, should be well lighted, and should be wide enough to accommodate the number of trucks, trailers, and equipment as well as traffic that the new neighborhood would command. We hope and ask that the Planning Commission will acknowledge the potential danger to the current neighborhood, our families, our children, and approve the development only after new access is completed. There are already far too many accidents and costs incurred on the existing road for additional heavy traffic to further endanger our family and friends. Sincerely, Joe Marushak. Questions?
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Jensen. 7th? Anyone else? Come on forward, sir.
Hello, my name is Ben Shulman, and I live off of Farview Drive. My primary concerns, first of all, are the road access, as mentioned many times. I've bound down 162nd, both head first and backwards, and it's a very difficult road to get up and down, especially when the roads aren't quite plowed all the way, or neighbors push snow into the roads that make it smaller. And so it gets difficult to get around when other traffic is coming up. So that's my primary concern. Secondary concern is the drainage. When Shangri-La went in, as mentioned, the drainage comes down Sandpiper, turns down Farview, and continues down the road until it hits our property, goes down our property, and erodes the gravel and the road. And so I'd like to see that there be a different way, because I know with the road coming in, you'll have two different drainages coming down Farview based on the previous history of the roads. And then I don't think it was mentioned much, but there is a lot of wildlife that comes through there, and continuing to push them further away is another issue that I don't feel has been really addressed today. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ben? How do you spell your last name?
Schulman.
Thank you. Glad we checked that. And no questions, sir. Please come forward, sir.
Hello, my name's Dan Hodgson, Hodgson. My concerns are access for fire and traffic, like people have mentioned over and over again, so that's short of restating that. Also wanted to point out that Farview Place, if you look on the plats that are in front of you, is effectively only one lane wide at this point, and it is the one lane that is all the way to the west most of it, if you will. And I wanted to ask about the development plans that were going on, not just in that platted subdivision, but basically it will require the widening of Farview Place, assuming that everything initially is going to go right through that. And if we start dealing with trails along the edges, or sidewalks along the edges, you're talking about substantial expansion to the east on Farview Place. My question is, what are the plans for that, and who ends up paying for it? It will require probably a substantial retaining wall from Lot 1 of Shangri-La, which incidentally is mine. So I was going to ask if that had been thought about at all.
Okay.
So that's all I have for the evening.
Thank you. And do we have any questions for Dan Hodgson? Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak this evening?
Good evening. My name is Christian Raywald, Rawalt. I also have the privilege of turning onto the one-lane road called Farview Place currently, and it is gravel and drainage is generally in the spring, and so the water does come down currently off Sandpiper from the Shangri-La development and divert downhill down Farview Place presently. The proposed drive is directly across from, well, mine and Ben and Anna's property, so I will have the privilege of seeing 27 homes built across from me, and my kids will get to see moving trucks and building trucks and all kinds of neat things. But the drainage is, especially, it's going to come right downhill to me, pending, vegetative absorption, and I don't have as much faith in that as you might hope. My main question, honestly, obviously, there's a lot of questions about the phases and the developments of how many homes, but on the plot maps that I see, Mountain Air Drive There's lots of lots up there that currently are not built on yet. They're for sale. We've seen maybe 6 or 7 that are up there that have sprung up in the last 5 years. So there is more traffic that we can see now. There's still a lot of lots already up there that have been, developed and approved without egress yet. So we haven't even experienced what the true traffic is for what's already approved. That's what I want to point out, that there's, I think, 30-some homes. There's more around Mountain Air Drive that go towards the dead end towards Bear Valley School that I know are for sale right now. That there's more homes that have already been approved without a secondary egress. So it's confusing to me how that's even been the situation for the last 5 years. So my understanding was that Mountain Air wasn't even going to be developed without secondary access. So I'm hoping we can stop this before approving more homes, just because that's a considerable amount of people to try to evacuate if there's a fire. And we're directly uphill from the middle school, and there's just a lot of woods. It's a very steep terrain with the slope. Drainage is just going to be continue to be an issue. So those are my concerns.
Thank you, sir. Your first name again was?
Christian.
Christian, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Do we have any questions for Christian? Becky Lipson.
And this is actually a question for staff, so
okay.
You can sit down. But the comments that were just raised, can staff help me understand, can anyone, if you're looking at the plat and Lot 1, so to the north of Lot 1, there's essentially a 60-foot right-of-way on 156th Avenue. Are people using 156th Avenue currently to drive on?
Through the chair, Ms. Lipson, no. No, they're not.
And is that just because it's proposed, or?
Let's take a look here at the maps section of the staff report, and I believe we have an aerial, and hang on one second here. So page 24, it doesn't quite show it, but it doesn't 156 just, it doesn't connect down to Golden View as far as constructed right-of-way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I answer that?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, it used to.
And then, since I still have the floor through the chair, is there a section line easement to the north of this plat in Mountain Air Estates Subdivision number 2? Like directly to the north, because I see a 33-foot section line easement on this plat. But I was just wondering if the other side of to the north and has this up.
Through the chair, Ms. Lipson, there might be a matching 33-foot wide section line easement to the north. However, I would direct that attention to Mr. Hoffman, that's representing the petitioners tonight.
Okay, we can ask that at the end. Thanks.
A question for staff. Normally we have right-of-way on section lines, and the plat is showing that there's a line, an easement there. Has it already been vacated in some prior action?
Mr. Walker, no. Section line easements, while they are reserved for sometimes right-of-way purposes, sometimes pedestrian purposes, drainage purposes, things of that sort, they're not always the best location for roads, given the fact that topography poses a significant challenge in construction. So I don't know that it's been, in this case, vacated. I think it's not shown because it's outside the boundary of the subdivision. if it does in fact exist. I would defer again to Mr. Hoffman as to whether or not there is a section line easement. I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
Thank you. Okay, do we have anyone else wishing to speak tonight? Please come forward, sir.
Good evening. My name's Ace Worley. I live at 16301 Sandpiper Drive. We bought our land in 1973. We built in 82. We've been there ever since, and we plan to be there for a few more years yet. I really want to commend the design team for what they have done in how they were proposing to use this land. I think that's very considerate of the nature of the hillside and the zoning requirements. They've done a great job. I think they've got a very buildable plan. But, and there's always a but, right, okay. The secondary access, it's been promised, it's been scheduled, we've been told it's going to happen, it's just 2 years from now it's going to happen. Tonight again, I'm hearing it's scheduled, it's going to happen, okay, in 4 years, something like that, okay. I would ask that until that access is under construction, that no further development be allowed to happen on Sandpiper or Windsong or the streets that feed into it until that access is under construction. It's gone on too long, folks. We've had the money to do that, and it somehow got away. And it needs to stop. Right now, everybody that lives on Sandpiper, Windsong, or a feeder street has to go on Windsong or the eastern end of 162nd. It's a choke point, and it could be really critical in emergency access to this area. And I would really ask you to consider it very seriously that you not allow any further construction up there. Not just these gentlemen's proposal. Don't build any more homes up there, this death of 1,000 cuts approach, until you have that access under construction. So, any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak tonight?
All right. My name is Anna Shulman. My husband
How do you spell your last name?
Schulman.
Thank you.
I'm with Ben, Banana. All right, so a couple things on the variance standards. It says that it will not be detrimental to public welfare or interest to other properties in the area which such property is situated. I would say that we've established that the drainage will cause problem to other properties right there. Right below this property, it will affect others. It will affect the safety, fire, roads, traffic, just even getting emergency vehicles up there. It'll affect the wildlife. It's a huge habitat right there, like one of the last that is left for spruce trees. There's lynx sprucins, there's nesting owls that live right on this property. The people that sold the Prominence Point, that own this land, were the ones that clear-cut that entire hillside. If you sit at Golden View School, you can look and see Prominence Point and see nothing but houses. You can look on the left side where we live and see trees, and you can see where there's houses that are built within the trees and within their environment. That doesn't exist in Prominence Point. So what I've appreciated was that the city has actually said some things that, oh, let's try to be fire-wise, let's try to retain some of the land or the trees so we have drainage that is able to absorb that. They're already asking for things to go away, like taking away sprinklers, like trying to take away the road access that was supposed to be used, which was the Lost Horizon, because of 20% grade. They're saying 20% grade, but then you look at the low-density residential alpine slope for R10, And 20% grade should be 2.5 acres, according to the city's stuff. It should be gravel surface, so it should be 8 lots if you were going to do this. But if you're going to do a variance at all, the standards require that it's not going to hurt other people's property or other people in the area, and if the general public wants it. The general public does not want this. They've made that clear. It hurts other properties. What else can I say? I have a lot, but, I'm standing here in front of everybody. So anyways, that's just the general thing is that if you're going to do this, if you're going to do any of this, let's not take the cheapest, easiest route that puts more money in their pockets. Let's do the right way that is going to, 1, either come straight off of Rabbit Creek, 2, come from the Lost Horizon. 156 is not viable. It does not connect. You don't have a way to get through there. You would have to go through people's houses or properties to redirect all that road. Right now it's cobblestone hill. There used to be an old trail that was put through that went all the way up as a trail. It's not 156th. So trying to go off 156, it still directs everything back down to Golden View, and it will have the same steep grade as you have on 162nd. So you're not fixing anything by having either of these routes go this way. So lastly, Farview is designed to be a dead-end street. Sorry.
Anna, thank you for your comments. Do we have any questions for Anna Shulman? Becky Libson does.
You do? Okay.
And to echo Mr. Cross's statements, I know other people want to speak probably, and tonight is going to be a longer night, but you were mid-sentence when you got cut off, so if you'd like to finish your statement, we'd be happy to hear it.
I was just going to say that Farview Road, so I'm Dave's daughter. I grew up here. I know I've seen everything that's been built up there and what the effect has been. When I built on my lot on Farview, it's a 3-house street. There's not a cul-de-sac at the end. It's a dead-end road, and it doesn't have any planning for that road to be continued. But there is other planning that was put in place for the other roads. And so to now say, okay, well, I built my house to be on a 3-house road, a dirt road that my kids can play on, and now you're going to have a major street with 81 cars coming down it, because they will have at least 3 cars at each home. 81 cars coming down my little 3-home dirt street is pretty disappointing that we're planning that just because it saves them a couple dollars and putting in with the proper road areas. Is that it?
And to follow up, so where are you suggesting that the road should be?
Lost Horizon. So when you come up, it would be lot 16, or coming down straight into there, or even better yet, come off the back to connect to where they're talking about with the mountain air. And again, some of this is going to, there's a pond there, and the topography does have a lot of water stuff and things to address. But again, you guys are choosing to do 27 lots versus the 2 lots that were planned for that area. It doesn't have to be 27 lots. Anything else?
Where is your house located?
The first one on Farview, directly across from their road there. Yeah, lot.
Can
We're
you show me
across from lot 5.
Across from lot 5. So you're lot 8D?
Yeah, 80.
Thank you. And anyone else wishing to speak tonight?
Good evening. My name is Chris Liu, L-Y-O-U. I live off of 6446 West Circle, W-E-S-T. I did provide an information packet that staff kindly issued. I'm assuming that will be incorporated as part of the record. Short version is my comments are going to echo basically every other member of the public. Yep.
You're the petitioner?
I'm sorry, sir?
Are you the petitioner or are you a member of the public?
I am a member of the public. I live off of West Circle.
Okay.
Okay. I wouldn't mind the 10 minutes if you wanted to give it to me, but I think you're only going to give me 3.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
No. My comments are just simply going to echo what you've already heard. As Mr. Cross has asked others, I basically have 4 succinct issues. Specifically, as has been stated repeatedly, I believe that the traffic department's portion of the staff report should be adopted, overriding the overall planning department recommendation. The traffic department, I think, articulates very well the concerns over safety, both for emergency access and the daily traffic flow. Again, my neighbors have articulated very well. In some of the attachments I provided, the first one, which is a copy annotated of page 64 of the staff report, it is my view, with all due respect to the traffic department's data, that they undercounted the flow of traffic. Just simply on my street that feeds off of West Circle on Windsong, there is a home being developed there. There is what appears to be by a plat parcel ID, as noted on the drawing, a residential condominium. There are 4 units. But as importantly, lots in this area, all the lots in this area, can add what is referred to as accessory dwelling units, ADUs. These are limited to no more than 2 bedrooms, but in a separate adjoining code, they also require an additional parking space. So these are just a couple or 3 examples of where clearly there is more potential for traffic flow, or also that already exists. Again, my neighbors have articulated extremely well the concerns for safety. Also, I would like to point out that the petitioner's application, there was a May letter dated to the planning director from the developer that in part stressed that there were no wetlands. That is just not true. Again, in one of the handouts annotated, it's page 38.
Sir?
Yes.
Your time is up.
Oh.
But hang on, and let's see if the board has any questions for you.
Sure. I'd be
Kevin
happy to
Cross.
answer.
Could you briefly finish your statement regarding the wetlands issues? Because the plat does say that there's no wetlands on this plat.
Yeah, well, again, I just took the page 38. One of my neighbors annotated the pond that has been referenced. It borders the eastern portion. It feeds lot 20 and 21, I believe. It is on the utility easement in terms of streams, and it's a small pond. Again, it is service. It is a wetland. It's a small, a dedicated, or should be recognized as a Class B by code, and to indicate that there are no wetlands on the mapped wetlands, I think was the term used by the petitioner, may be true, but it's there, and it's on their easement. Again, drainage issues are huge. On the western part, it's commendable to me that the planning department did acknowledge and recommended the 25 easement, but as Ms. Holmes indicated, how adequate that is, I will say that I found it disingenuous on the phasing plat. Again, it's in the packet I provided.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Lou.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Pettit, and I also live on West Circle at 6500 West Circle, next to Mr. Liu. And our home, according to the new subdivision drawings, our home is just west of what would be lot number 2. And my husband and I have come to request that the variances that are being requested be denied, and that no further homes be built in this area until additional roads leading out of that area have been established, consistent with what everyone else has been saying this evening. We believe that there's a fire and life safety concern in emergencies, as all of this traffic is being directed down Sandpiper Drive and 162nd. We have significant concerns should there be an emergency and everyone being able to get out. And we're very concerned about drainage. Our home flooded in January of 2013, and it was shocking. But we were able to walk up Farview Drive and then up to Shangri-La, up to Sandpiper Drive, and the water was just pouring down the paved Sandpiper Drive, turning sort of north onto Farview Drive, and then coming right into our yard and into our home through a window. So Ben and Christian, you did not stop all the water. Thanks for trying. And so we're just concerned about further loss of vegetation and drainage planning and hard surfaces that could result in damage to our property. And again, as it's been stated, I don't know how we can be certain that 25-foot vegetation easement is adequate without knowing the locations of the well and the septic systems for those lots. We too are concerned about the wetlands area, the ponds and the streams in that area, and just are curious about how that is going to be protected. Last weekend, several teams of us got out and spoke to our neighbors just to see if people were aware of what was happening in the neighborhood and just to find out what their thoughts were. And fortunately, many people showed up here tonight, but most people, given only 4 days' notice, were not able to be here. We did submit to you some signatures just identifying other neighbors who oppose continued building in this area until there's a secondary access road so that we don't have the safety concerns related to congestion on Sandpiper and 162nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Kimberly Pettit? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else from the public wishing to speak tonight? Seeing no further interest, we'll go back to the petitioner for rebuttal. Oh, we have one more.
Hello, my name is Casey Kathleen Millar, M-I-L-L-A-R. I'm a 20-year resident of this area on Windsong Drive. So I just want to echo again everything that has been said. I'm very concerned. My concern would be with the egress specifically. We all know that it is not a matter of if, but when there is an incident on Hillside. All the reasons and all of the, the fire safety and all of those things have been mentioned, but without the proper infrastructure here to support this plan, it's reckless. It's endangering people and homes, and it's needs to be absolutely have the infrastructure there to support a plan like this. While I feel for the people that bought this property and want to develop it, it cannot come before the safety of the people that are already there. And to all of you, I would just appeal that we would consider safety above commerce in what we do for our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Casey? How do you spell your last name again?
M-I-L-L-A-R, Millar.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Seeing none? Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else spurred to action with that last comment? Seeing none, we'll now take petitioner's representative for rebuttal.
How much time's remaining? I think I just want to start by reading the definition of development. So I heard several people mention no more development in this area. Title 21 defines development as the initiation, construction, change, enlargement of any use or structure, the disturbance of land, or the division of land into two or more parcels. Development shall include, but is not limited to, the following: construction or enlargement of a building or structure, change in type and use of a building or structure, material increase in the intensity of the use of land, such as increase in the number of businesses, office, manufacturing establishments, dwelling units located in the building, commencement of expansion of resource extraction, agriculture, horticulture, demolition of a structure or the clearing of vegetation from a parcel or land, deposition or reuse solid or liquid waste, fill parcel on a land, alteration of a shore or bank, I don't think that necessarily applies, any land disturbing activity that adds or changes to the amount of impervious, partially impervious covered land or area. I guess the reason I'm reading that is because what we're trying to do tonight is subdivide a piece of land into 27 lots. It doesn't actually add any occupants to this land. It doesn't create any trips. It's just subdividing land and building a road. I want to reserve some time for the engineers to discuss drainage, but my main point is that what we're here tonight is to talk about subdividing land, not actually building houses or remodeling houses or any other things that fall under development of Title 21. And the last thing I can really want to cover is that more houses with more property taxpayers feeding into this road service area is really a surefire way to get more maintenance on the roads that seem to need it and to provide more motivation for Mountaineer Drive. And I think Triad will address some drainage.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Marcotte with Triad Engineering. That's M-A-R-C-O-T-T. We heard a lot of comments regarding drainage concerns tonight and wanted to direct some attention to some geotechnical information that we have in the packet. If I could just find the page here. Yes, thank you. Test holes were done in 1983 on the westerly 20 acres of the two 20-acre parcels, and there's a about 10 pages summary of the test holes findings. Most of the test hole findings that we're seeing have varying soils from NFS materials to all the way up to F4 materials. But what they basically show to me is that while groundwater is present in some of the holes, it's mostly absent across the site. Of course, this was done in 1983, but preliminary geotechnical investigations show that the soils on site are generally suitable for development. They're generally suitable for infiltration systems. They're generally suitable for road construction. There's no wetlands on this particular piece of property, according to the municipal mappers online. So wetlands are not a concern. There are no streams on this property that we are aware of. The drainage patterns are generally to the north and to the northwest, so this development will not be increasing or directing runoff towards Sandpiper or 162nd. Any drainage coming down Farview will need to be collected and addressed as part of our road improvement plans when we submit our civil plans for the development. So the drainage standards with the city are very tough. We cannot increase runoff from this development between post.
I'm very interested to know more about your drainage study. Please continue.
Sure. Through the chair, Mr. Cross. Basically, what I was trying to state was that we cannot increase runoff from post-development conditions over pre-development conditions. So we have to submit a pretty substantial drainage report that analyzes pre-development flows versus post-development flows. And we have to show that those post-development flows are not over and above pre-development flows. So the general onus of current development is that to infiltrate the water where we can along the road prisms and mitigate that increase in runoff from the impervious areas that are from the buildings.
Thank you. And did I see a question? Oh, you've got.
So part of the concern is you were dealing with soil tests from 1983, and it sounds to me as if more recently, just due to what's running off of Shangri-La, the two wetlands that are approximately to the northeast, that this neighborhood, according to public testimony, has been experiencing quite a bit of surface water running down, what do we got here, Sandpiper Drive, accumulating at Fairview Drive. How does your drainage study take into any changes that have occurred since 1983, as well as the additional runoff that's been created by, as stated by one of our individuals, the additional development that's taken place, private development, smaller lots that have changed? I mean, if we're using old data when things have changed, how reliable is the information that we've come up with?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, that's a fair question. Current analysis will require new geotechnical information along the road prism for starters. Our drainage report will have to analyze the upstream flows that come into the development from the south and from the southeast. So we can't just ignore what's going on along Sandpiper. If we're tying into Farview and there's drainage coming down Farview into our development, we have to analyze what's going on to the south and accommodate it.
So for the public's benefit, even if your plat is approved, you're still going to have to update your water test, your soil samples, and come in and make sure and verify through tests that 100% of the drainage stays on your lot and is mitigated properly.
Yes, the increase in runoff will be mitigated.
Yes.
Yes, we'll have to do geotechnical tests. We'll have to do percolation tests for any of our infiltration systems. Those are all mandatory requirements.
And even if this plat is approved, if during that testing procedure, which then comes up next before you can build so much as a road or a house, something comes back negative, what happens?
We go back to the drawing board.
And have to redesign?
Sure, yeah.
And come back here again seeking approval and changes?
Potentially, yes. From what we see from the initial geotechnical analysis, I think the development's possible.
The geotechnical part and the testing, how long will that take and how extensive is it?
We drill test holes every 300 feet along the road prism, and then we'll have to do infiltration testing anywhere we plan to put in infiltration systems within the road prism.
And Mr. Spelling, what is the cost of the drainage study of what he's just described to us? What does something like that cost on a plot on the lot?
The geotechnical investigation will probably cost close to $20,000 for the engineering and the actual work of doing the holes. The triad will then have to analyze it, which, millions.
All right, very good. I appreciate it. Thank you for answering my questions.
I have a couple of questions. On this development, you guys had access to Lost Horizon Drive, right? You could have built it using Lost Horizon Drive.
Lost Horizon Drive is very steep, so access to that would be nearly. I have concerns that the trail. Ms. Holmes' photos. They give me some faith that a trail can go there, but it is quite steep. I don't think a road would be feasible.
And then What's shown on the plat here is the road actually isn't built. It's just a right-of-way that's...
Correct.
And I heard some testimony that 156 at one time was actually a usable road?
I don't know the full history. I know just west of the property, there's a house that's located on a pretty large lot, maybe 2.5, 5 acres. And that driveway runs up the 156 right-of-way and to access that property. But other than that, I've been back in there. There's some weird weaving around of stuff, but I don't know exactly what's going on.
How much would have to be done in order to get access to this property from 156?
I think you heard it from a longtime neighbor tonight that 156 was the first thing I started asking about when I was looking for a way to make this project work. And I was told constantly that it's too steep, it won't work. And even one of the neighbors here tonight confirmed it, that if you put a road down 156, it would be just as steep as 162nd. And I think there might be question about if the right-of-way actually connects all the way through.
Okay. Yeah, because on this portion, it doesn't look like 156 is that steep. So after it gets off this particular plat on down the way,
Yeah, I
much
think
steeper.
it's between here and there and Golden View.
And we heard some testimony that this road, I think, that has 3 houses on it on Farview, it's only designed for 3 houses. In your development plan, are you only going 30 feet, are you adding additional 30 feet to their dirt road they already have, or what?
The plans aren't finalized yet, but we'd be improving the road. Do you want to?
Mr. Chairman, my name is David Grenier with Triad Engineering.
Thank you.
And condition 9B addresses Farview as far as construction. They'll, in addition to the existing 30 feet that is platted, we'll be adding 30 feet to the east, and so it'll be a total of 60 feet. And the road will be constructed per condition 9B, which would be a 20-foot strip paved road. And so that will address, and then the existing residents will have access to that new paved street.
Now, is the 20-foot strip paved the piece that's shown on the map here on Sandpiper, or is there another 20 feet that's going up the Farview Place area?
Could you repeat that question? I'm not sure.
On the large plat, it says there's a 20-foot strip paved that's planned here for Sandpiper. But there doesn't describe what's going to happen on the Farview Place.
We'll be creating a new intersection that ties into Sandpiper. And so it'll be an intersection with 20-foot curb returns. And does that answer your question, sir?
I think so. Does that raise any other questions for the board? I think so. Becky Lipson.
Thank you. On our amended version of the plat notes, I was wondering with D6, and this may be a question for staff, but if petitioner's representative knows, and if you're not the person to answer, you can just invite a colleague up. So there's a reduction from the Muni recommendation of 8 foot down. Oh, is the recommendation now request for 5 foot, and what's the basis for the reduction in 3 feet?
That's based on Title 21. Okay. And actually, I'm sorry, it's based on the DCM Design Criteria Manual and Title 21. When you have unpaved trails, basically it's 5 feet. In fact, you go to when you go to a paved section of 8, that's good for 1,000 pedestrians per day. And then, so in this case, we're looking at 5 foot would be more than adequate for this area. Again, based on Title 21 and the DCM section 4.21.
Thank you. I'm just making sure I don't. With regard to the Section 15D note about firewise construction and landscaping techniques. So my question is to staff, I guess, on that question being, I have seen in our packet, and it looks like the information packet that we were handed out today, there's one page that has a list of Firewise Landscaping 101 techniques. It's the second to last document, or I guess it is, yeah, second to last page of that, or last page. Is there some code that has, like, lists out all of the Firewise construction and landscaping techniques that they would need to comply with? Because one of, for instance, the third to last bullet point is mow tall grass and rake up residue. And so I was wondering if there was a list somewhere, all the requirements.
Through the chair, Ms. Lipson, we're taking a look at that page real quick, but I believe it would be in the wildland the urban interface manual is where you would find that. This 101 that's was passed out, I believe, is just kind of a synopsis where you'd have to. It's a handout.
And that makes sense. It seems like a general overview. And has the urban, remind me what, urban interface manual, has that been incorporated into code, or?
Through the chair, Ms. Lipson, the wildland urban interface, I do not believe has been adopted. I believe it is routinely used by the fire department, but I do not believe it's an adopted code.
Okay. Those are all of my questions.
Mm-hmm. Kevin Cross.
All right, excellent. Let's see what we've got here. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna continue on road. I'm gonna go with road access and have my traffic questions. Right now, phase 1 is just 11 lots or 11 houses that you want to add before we do any kind of additional traffic connections, correct?
That is correct. We're requesting that 11 lots be platted at this time.
And it wasn't clear, and I apologize. Your phase 1, the 11 houses, are which lots? They're not 1 through 11. Are they other than 1 through 11? Are they a different number?
I believe in the packet there's a phasing plan, and then on sheet.
Thank you.
On page 22 would show the phasing plan.
Oh, there it is. You got phase 1. Okay, so that's phase 1. All right, okay, that's for the Fairview. So now I'm looking at this map, and I wanted to ask staff here. It looks like the end of the end of, Sandpiper Drive and Prominence Point Drive point right at each other by a separation of about 500 yards. Is there any reason why that wasn't connected? I'm looking at, I've just got Google Maps. I'm just using Google Maps where they basically point right at each other. They're 500 yards apart. Is there any reason, is there an easement to connect those? Is there any reason why the end of Sandpiper and Prominence Point Drive weren't ever tied in? It's a slingshot distance away. Would that have eliminated issue? Was that looked at as a potential resolution? That would have taken a lot of your upper traffic and send it down Prominence Point Drive, which meets your grade requirements.
Mr. Cross, I'm looking at page 23. Could you articulate it a little better what you're looking at there?
I see Sandpiper turns, maybe this is, Sandpiper Drive. I mean, unless my Google Maps is lying to me, it looks like Prominence Point Drive and Sandpiper Drive point right at each other. Sandpiper ends doing what is a little trail they look like they've been skiing on or something.
Lost Horizon Drive, could be.
They call it Sandpiper Drive. Well, you know what? I think it is Lost Horizon. They're calling it Sandpiper on my Google Maps, but yes. That'd be Lost Horizon, I guess. So blame Google. Lost Horizon drops at Doglegs down and heads what would be southwest. And it points right at Prominence Point Drive there, and there's a short interconnection. I mean,
there's definitely a grade issue to connect the two.
A grade issue as well.
But there was a layout when this was done. There was a plat on this a number of years ago that
Through the chair,
and it did show.
Mr. Cross, I can probably answer that question. There was another subdivision, Views of Prominence, that came before this board that had at one point in time proposed a connection from Lost Horizon to Prominence Point. Unfortunately, that subdivision never really came to fruition, so we never had a recorded plat and were able to obtain that right-of-way to make that connection.
Okay, so much like this subdivision, it was replatted, it was approved, they did additional research, for whatever reason, it never went anywhere.
I believe the feasibility of constructing the roadways, given the number of lots they were given, or that they were platting, didn't work.
Okay.
And thus they opted not to develop the subdivision.
Excellent. And last question I have regarding traffic is that the two variances you're looking for are for the cul-de-sac being over 900 feet and then the lot size on lot 21. So everything else looks like you've stayed within Title 21. But the 900 foot for the cul-de-sac, that's because the topography just requires you, in order to stay within your grade compliance, that required that, extenuated route that pushed you past the 900 foot. Is that my understanding?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, exactly. To stay within the design criteria manual of a 10% grade, that is where you see the curvilinear.
So if you weren't under the more stringent requirements of the 10% grade under Title 21 and were under the old compliance of some of the surrounding roads that are currently being driven on, you would have been able to design that without a 900 foot, but under new code, you need more than 900.
There'd be quite a bit of additional road, which means additional clearing and,
And additional clearing would be additional drainage issues.
Exactly.
So the road plan you have now was the least amount of road to create the least amount of disturbance to vegetation, is that correct?
That is correct, and also meet the criteria road grades.
Okay. And finally, and I apologize if I'm hogging the mic, I'll be done here. There was a question about vegetation and whether or not when you build these houses, we're just going to clear it to make it look like Prominence Point. Can you speak as to conservation of vegetation during development?
Well,
if you ever make it that far.
From the subdivision standpoint, when you construct the roads, you don't clear the lots. That is a function of the lot owner when they build it. The dilemma here is going to be fire-wise construction versus retaining of the vegetation. So you've got two conflicting concerns. The point about prominence, keep in mind that those were R7 lots, which are 20,000 square feet minimum. Here we're looking at 1.25 acres minimum. So it's not a fair comparison as far as land use.
And it's not a fair comparison because the lots are substantially larger.
Correct.
Than Prominence Point.
Up to 3 times.
Any other board members? Or you want sprinklers?
Yeah, sprinkler.
Okay, Kevin Cross.
Andre, please. I have a question about fire sprinkler. Lucky you, I was a fire protection contractor for 16 years. Have you heard of a Wurzbro system?
Yes.
Good, it's a PEC system, it's a low flow. So you had a bid of $20,000 per residence for a fire sprinkler system.
Well, those are numbers that I received from John Hagmeyer, who's built homes up in Potter Highland.
Okay.
And it's not just the sprinkler system. We're at I would assume on 3,000 to 4,000 square foot house, the system itself would probably cost in the 20,000 range. I've done a couple assisted living homes, 1,800 square foot ranches around town, and I've seen sprinkler systems cost 16,000. The additional money is for hooking up to the well and providing additional pump costs when you're using well water for the sprinkler.
Yeah, I think assisted living facilities fall under NFPA 70 as more of a commercial system with a 13R, and I think that your residential systems are 13, have a much less. It's only required living space and kitchens, no closets, no storage, no garages, things like that. So it's a much smaller system. So I think your estimates on the cost are really high. But that said, I understand the concern with it freezing up or those issues. The reason for needing a fire sprinkler system, again, is that just because of the road access problem issue with fire trucks, and it's a fire service? Like
I've been scratching my head on that for a while, so I'm really not sure, other than fire threw an extra something in there for us. In fire's comments in your packet, there's a discussion. They discuss the Firewise. They don't actually address the sprinkler system. They recommend it as a condition, but they don't actually talk about why.
The staff, and I didn't see note from the fire protection. Do we know why they're mandating or why they're requesting the fire sprinkler system? I can only imagine it's an access issue?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, yes, that's correct. Typically speaking, on subdivisions in excess of 30 lots, you're required to do one of two things: provide secondary access or provide a sprinkler system. While this subdivision is 27 lots, the aggregate accessing off of a single access is in excess of that 30 lots. And thus, the fire department is recommending that sprinklers be installed in these homes to deal with that access issue.
All the additional lots that are for sale upstream, I believe it was Ben who had mentioned that that are up near Shangri-La and that are sale. Will any new houses that are built be required to put fire sprinkler systems in it, or is it just strictly this neighborhood?
If there's no plat note requiring the sprinkler system, I do not believe they would be required to. And I don't believe in Shangri-La that was a requirement.
Okay. Thank you.
Becky Lipson.
Question for staff through the chair. So on item 9A, I believe that's something that the petitioner is requesting be removed, and that's where East 156th Avenue constructing the strip paved street. Why is, if 156th Avenue isn't going to be constructed, can staff speak to why that requirement's in the plat?
Through the chair, Ms. Lipson, 156th Avenue is what we would call a peripheral street. It's a street that's peripheral to the subdivision. Improvements to peripheral streets are discretionary. They're not required. That being said, the private development department recommended that improvements to 156 be required. I think that their comments or suggested requirements are due in large part to the future needs of this particular area, and having the burden not fall entirely on to the municipality or to the road board or to the lot owners that are fronting onto 156th.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? With that, the public hearing section is closed, and the matter now rests with the board. With that, may I have a motion to approve the requested variance from AMC 2108-030F6, the cul-de-sacs rule? Page 16. Okay. Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion?
Yes, regarding case S12420, Spruce Terrace Subdivision, I move to approve the requested variance from AMC 21.08.030F6, cul-de-sac to extend a maximum 900 feet in length for a cul-de-sac measuring approximately 1,250 feet from the center line drainage of the Alaska Terrence Lane to the center of the cul-de-sac bulb of Spruce Terrace Circle, subject to Section 1.
Thank you. And Becky Lipsum has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, regarding the approval of we often give variances for the 900-foot restriction, provided that it meets the 6 qualifications of a variance request, which are noted on pages, I believe that's 12 through 16. Excuse me, I apologize. Nope, that is 12 and 16. Additionally, I would like to point out that a big part of the reason for the variance request and where it came in, that the concern was that it was putting undue hardship and that there wasn't really any hardship with sticking to 900 feet, is that under Title 21, we have to stay with a 10% grade or less in order to keep the roads at a safe, manageable slope, not to create additional problems that we've heard on the other roads that are steep and beyond a 10% grade. They say are an ice hazard, but in order to maintain a 10% grade for public safety, the variance request is reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to make some factual findings? Becky Lipsum.
To echo what Mr. Cross was saying, we did hear testimony and looking at the plat topography. I'm certainly sensitive to the fact that just because you're allowed a certain number of lots doesn't mean you necessarily need to develop the parcel to maximize those number of lots. It appears that this development team has been working on developing this property for a considerable amount of time, and I don't think they would probably stand up here and advocate for a plan that was so opposed by the public if there was an easy solution to be had. And looking at the topography and Lot 16 in particular, that appears to be the only place that you could connect to Lost Horizon Drive. And so in many ways, this plat development is a byproduct of maybe less than perfect plat developments and road placements in the past. And in order to have safe roads and have that grade, I think there does need to be other concessions made. The considerations that we as a board look to in granting variances or denying variances is whether or not there are special circumstances or conditions, and I've spoken to those. whether or not the granting the variance is going to be detrimental to the public welfare. We did hear testimony about, I think a lot of people who came and testified today think the entire subdivision is detrimental to the public welfare, and that's certainly a belief that you're entitled to have. When we're looking at the variance standard, we're looking at whether or not an additional X number of feet is detrimental. And in this case, because of topography and where the other roads are that they need to connect to, I find that this criteria has been met in this circumstance. Whether or not granting the variance is going to have the effect of nullifying the intent and purpose of subdivision regulations, I believe that standard's met, and I think staff on page 14 explained why. And then on page 15 of our packet, whether undue hardship would result from the strict compliance with specific provisions. I also find that that standard's been met at this point because of the topography. The road internally needs to go where it's been placed. And as staff pointed out, section line easements, while they may be good in theory for providing access, don't provide necessarily where roads feasibly need to go to comply with code. So for those reasons and the reasons that staff has set forth in our packet, I will be supporting this variance.
Thank you. I would like to also add that the purpose of the cul-de-sac rule on length has to do with the density on a 900 foot cul-de-sac for standard development, and that rule doesn't apply specifically to this case due to the size of the lots, the number of additional houses being added in this area is probably fewer lots or fewer additional drivers for those 900 feet due to the size of the lots. Accordingly, I think that there are special circumstances that support the granting of that specific variance. And the piece that we don't look at is, with respect to that, is the development on whole and the traffic that it might add to the rest of the community doesn't come into play with respect to the variance being requested. And with that, are there any other findings? Seeing none, I will call the vote. That motion has passed. We'll now turn to approval of the requested variance from 2108-030K2. May I have a motion? Kevin Cross, would you please state your motion?
Regarding case number S12420, Spruce Terraces Subdivision, move to approve the phasing plans subject to the following conditions. 1. Is that the, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at section C. I apologize.
Page 16.
Yep, sorry about that. I'm sorry, section B, excuse me. I move to approve the requested variance from AMC 12.08.030K2 lot dimensions to allow for lot 21 to have a width of 148 feet and a depth of 471.4 feet, subject to 1, recording a suitable plat within 60 months of approval of any approval time extensions.
And Jen Welton has seconded your motion.
Thank you.
Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, again, in the staff packet, it talks about the reason for designing the lot has a lot to do with topography. The lot restrictions and the sizes that are put in Title 21 often don't take in the unique circumstances that we have on this particular property regarding the curvature of the road and trying to maintain in a balance between lot size, lot location, road location. And I think really this one lot within the whole process being a little narrower and longer than typically proposed is not an unreasonable request. We've given them in the past under very, very almost nearly identical circumstances where you have a topography that requires the road to follow within a very given specific location in order to maintain the 10% grade. And what's more important, a road grade of 10% or less for road safety or a lot that's a little narrower than usual, I will side on having a road grade with 10% or less and a narrow lot.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings for the second motion? Seeing none. Oh, Becky Lipsum.
I would just add on that I believe the amount we're talking about is 6%, and just highlight staff's comments that it is a de minimis variance request.
Thank you. And any further comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. And with that, we'll move to approve the phasing plan. May I have a motion to approve the phasing plan? Becky Lipsum, would you please state your motion?
In case S12420, I move to approve the phasing plan subject to the following condition. C1, no construction beyond Phase 1 shall be permitted until a secondary access road serving the subdivision is funded and approved for construction.
Thank you. And Kevin Cross has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Probably the majority of the testimony that we heard tonight was whether or not to permit this plat to go forward before there was secondary access provided. And my guess is that this is staff's attempt to essentially split the baby, to allow the developer to develop a small portion of the ultimate subdivision, or a portion, but not to be deaf to the concerns of the surrounding neighbors that you need a secondary access. I personally am very uncomfortable with the idea that our board is able to put an absolute ban on further development in this area based on whether or not there's political will to fund the rest of Mountain Air Drive. I know that petitioner is requesting removal of this condition, and I do think this is a way to incentivize possibly getting funding for Mountain Air Drive, and I will be supporting this condition that there be phased development.
Any additional findings?
Just to speak to this motion, this one was really difficult for me, to be honest with you, regarding the approval of the phasing subject to it. And I agree with Becky, with what you said regarding it's like splitting the baby, because I would prefer to see that the road access is completed before anything is developed. However, it sounds like the neighbors attempted to pull that together at one point, and those funds were I guess robbed is an aggressive word, but it sounds like that they were obfuscated and taken from them, so I don't want to see that happen again. However, I know that continuing that road is going to take some considerable investment from the petitioner in order to put that road, continue it through, and in order to do that, at least these 11 houses allow them to get the funds in order to complete the project. You can look at it like we're just getting a few houses now, we sell some lots, we can take the money from the lots as we do the development, and that allows us to at least have the capital to invest in it, because it's not going to be inexpensive from what I can tell. So it's a long stretch that they've got to tie in to create that second way. And I think 11 houses, 22 cars additional on that. Yeah, it's frustrating. However, you have the potential for 22 cars with the existing development that's already there. I don't think that's an unreasonable request. And so, like, this one was really hard for me, but I'm going to move to approve it, just simply because it's not the whole development. It seems like it seems like a fair compromise.
On what legal authority do we have to impose this condition on the phasing plan? That's a question for staff.
Mr. Chair, with the conditions C?
C1.
1? Okay, hang on a sec. Let's read it.
Mr. Chairman, you have absolute authority to impose this condition, given the testimony that you've heard tonight from the public with respect to the concerns revolving around secondary access, with the comments that have come in from the traffic department, from the comments you've heard from the planning department. You have absolute authority to require this this condition. I might add to that the Platting Board is permitted to be more restrictive than code. You're not permitted to be less restrictive. This is certainly more restrictive than code, so you have that authority.
Okay. Are there any other findings that anyone wishes to offer? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. And with that, we'll now move on to moving to approve the plat for 60 months. May I have a motion? Purple strap. How does that work? Do we have to read that in? No, I think it's just quote straight from these things right on the table. You'd mark this as an exhibit?
No.
Right. Can you mark it as an exhibit so we can quote from it? We can make it public. Staffs. Right.
Your patience, we have two versions. We have an amended version and we have the original version. So we're figuring out how we read this in with two different versions so that it's very clear what it is that we're voting on. Thank you.
Yep. And that's now going to be the official exhibit.
As read from exhibit. Petitioner's exhibit as well.
You have the floor.
Thank you. All right, I move to approve the plat for 60 months following, subject to the following conditions. This is as proposed on petitioner's exhibit number S12420. This is addendum to the staff packet. Under section D, approval for, again, conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as stated, amended. 8, 9, 9A, 9B, 9C, 9D, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15A, B, C, C is amended, D and E, 16A, 16A, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 7 as amended.
And Becky Lipsum has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. Our public testimony, all, what did I take notes on here? All 14 individuals was probably, I would say, 73% traffic with the additional 24% being drainage. And I want to understand to everybody here that when we approve a plat, an individual comes to us with a piece of land that they want to understand what platting is. It's not dictating the use. It's just, can they move the boundaries and can they put property lines? Okay? It's not unreasonable for you on your own property to say, I want to put my driveway in here. Then when you go to do and put that driveway in, you're going to have to do a lot of things. You have to do soil compacts tests, and there's a bunch of tests that go in. So approving a plat does not necessarily mean any houses are going to get built. It just means that the layout of your lots as you put them there seem acceptable under Title 21. Everything you've done is legal, and now you have a lot of homework to do. And this is one of the most extensive list of requirements I think I've seen in years requiring what a petitioner has to do to get a property qualified. And regarding drainage, I want to make sure that I read into the record that one of the things you're going to have to do before they can do anything is submit to private development for review and approval a comprehensive site grading and drainage plan to resolve the need for drainage easements and drainage improvements to demonstrate that post-development drainage patterns will not adversely impact adjacent properties or rights-of-way, and to include a suitable outfall. Grading and drainage plans shall conform to project management and engineering department operations policy and procedure number 5. Copies of project management and engineering department operation policy and procedure number 5 may be obtained from the private development. Drainage design shall conform to municipality standards of design, drainage, manual DCM, and drainage design guidelines. Additionally, they will submit plans and data tests and engineering reports to on-site water and wastewater section in order to substantiate the capability of any proposed lots to adequately dispose of water and provide adequate and safe potable water for each lot, so that covers wells. And additionally, the property owners and utilities shall not obstruct, impede, or alter or approve drainage facilities, swells, ditches in any way that will adversely impact adjacent properties' rights-of-ways. So what we've got here is multiple times it states that they're going to be having to put forward a much more rigorous drainage study than any of the surrounding lots that you're currently dealing with. And we're comparing apples to oranges. And that is that we're looking at a Shangri-La, we're looking at these other developments that were done years to decades ago that were a different standard, and comparing it to what is now a much more rigid standard. And understanding that as far as the drainage concerns, unless they can comply with all this, nothing gets built. Regarding the traffic, I think that's going to be resolved, and our anticipation is that we're allowing 11 houses and no more without fixing the traffic issue and having our alternative forms. And those two cover what was essentially 99.9% of the public's testimony on their concerns with if anything goes, make sure that these issues are resolved. And so the petitioner has a big, long, steep hill, forgive the pun, regarding the topography of the lot ahead of them to get this developed. Thank you.
Any additional findings? Becky Lipsum.
I'd add to what Mr. Cross has said with regard to the plat is also going to include the following notes, which is item 15A and 15B also speak to drainage. And for instance, 15B says property owners and utilities shall not obstruct, impede, or alter approved drainage facilities, for instance, swales, ditches, in any way that will adversely impact adjacent properties or rights of way. So we did hear a lot about drainage today, rightfully so. This plat includes at least note 10 and note 15, A, B, talking about drainage, and for that reason, I do think that drainage, from things that we can do as a platting board, is as adequately addressed as possible. We also heard a lot about the need for, as we've spoken about, secondary access, and that is 15E in this condition. As a matter of housekeeping, is this Exhibit 1 or Exhibit A?
Just that petitioner's exhibit.
What do you want? Did this exhibit come from staff, or did it? It came from staff. So just for the record, this is not petitioner's exhibit. This is just the modified staff.
Exhibit. Oh, thank you.
Thank
you. With respect to item 6, the 8-foot soft surface trail, I do find also that the standards in DCN 4.2.1 on unpaved trails and the Title 21, 21.07.0604C, and 5A, that a 5-foot minimum trail is required, and that's the cleared section of it. I think an 8-foot trail width minimum is reasonable in this case. So I'd be supporting that condition. And I think that the signage has been addressed. People were wanting signs with respect to the trail, and that is identified in item 6 as well. Are there any other findings that the board wants to make? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. And the motion passes. Are there any other persons to be heard tonight? And with that case, we will stand in adjournment. It is 8:50.